Hello, everybody. This is Mrs. Tucker with your assignment for today. So we're going to be looking at the focused note-taking process, and there are 5 steps for the focused note-taking system that we use in Avid. And I know that many of you, especially my seniors, my juniors, that you've been in Avid for a few years now. This is very familiar to you, but I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page as far as our requirements and our understanding of focused note-taking. Now, a few weeks back, we did talk about note-taking in Avid. If you were face-to-face with me, we actually did this in class together. If you are AVL, you had to do the Nearpod that went ahead and talked to you about note-taking and different formats for note-taking. So we're going to talk about some of that today. We're going to do this in a 2-step process. So we're going to go through a few slides today. Then I'll have an assignment for you, and then we'll do the rest of the slides Friday. Now, you must, before we start, you must go ahead and take notes over the slides and the information we're going to go over. Please make sure your name, the date, the class period, and then the topic is on your notes. Anytime you take notes, guys, yes, even in a spiral, you want to make sure you date your notes. You want to make sure you know what they're for, and you definitely have a topic. If it's loose leaf notebook paper, absolutely name, class period, date, and the topic. So make sure your topic is focused note-taking. Now, the focused note-taking process, there's 5 steps that we use in this process. First step is taking the notes. Second step, processing your notes. Third step, connecting your thinking. Fourth step is summarize and reflecting on the learning you did. And then finally, we have to apply that learning. We have to do something with all that great information. So what we're going to do is we're going to break this into a few pieces, and we're going to go over a few of these today. You're taking notes on them, and then we'll go through the rest of them Friday. Please make sure that your notes are legible because you will be turning them in at the end of today. All right, so a few guiding principles, some things that guide us when it comes to focus notes. Number 1, this is something that we must explicitly teach you. We cannot just sit there and say, hey guys, go take notes, good luck. If we really want you to improve as a note taker, it has to be a process that is taught, that is reviewed, that is practiced. And for those of you who are going to be going to college after you graduate, you're really going to see the need for note taking at the college level. In high school, honestly, and I've said this before for those of you who've had me, we don't really focus on your ability to take and process your notes. Yes, we say, here's a handout, here's a fill in the blank, here's a packet, and we tell you to write things down. But at the college level, you're going to have to listen, determine what's important, write down, and use that information to study, to have some type of final product for your professor. So we want to make sure that we don't just say, okay, guys, take notes, because it's more than that. The key that we want to focus on is, all right, I took notes. Now what? What next? Now, for learning to occur effectively, you must revisit your notes multiple times in different ways. Guys, you cannot be in class Monday, take notes on Monday, and then expect just because you wrote everything down Monday that you're going to be ready for the quiz on Friday. In all honesty, if you want to be effective, you have to look at those notes Monday when you took them. Look at those notes again on Tuesday. Look at those notes again on Wednesday and on Thursday before your test Friday. It is something you have to do, and it's not just, here's my notes, let me read. Here's my notes, let me read. Some of you may need to make flashcards. Some of you will even benefit from rewriting your notes. I'm not saying you have to rewrite your notes. I'm saying some of you would benefit from rewriting notes. Some of you will want to get a partner and quiz each other and go back and forth and ask each other questions. And those are a variety of ways instead of just having your notes and I'm going to read it. You've got to change up the process in order for the information to kick in. Every phase of focus notes involves inquiry. And I know if you're familiar with AVID, which we talked about, Wicker, writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading. It's funny, almost forgot it, right? You must constantly ask questions of yourself, the notes, and the content. Well, why are we studying this? Well, why did he do this? Well, why do we use this formula instead of this formula? So when you look at the definition of inquiry, guys, it's saying a request for information. So I'm trying to get more information about the Civil War, about my physics formulas, about this novel we're reading. It's an investigation of public interest. Yeah, you guys are the public, but it's an examination into facts or principles, research. Again, not just who was part of that war, but why were they part of that war? What did they do that was significant? Why do we talk about them when we look back at this war? What were the decisions that they made that made them a notable figure? So we always within our notes want to inquire, to ask, get more information, examine the facts, find out why. So let's look at some of the focused note-taking steps. The very first one is taking notes. So guys, you have to be in class and you need to take notes. So first, and we talked about this before in our other notes, you have to have a purpose and an objective for taking notes. So why am I taking notes? Am I trying to prepare for a quiz? Am I trying to compare and contrast two characters from a novel? Am I trying to memorize vocabulary terms? So understand, what is my purpose? What is my objective for taking notes? Then I want to write my essential question. My essential question is that one question I should be able to answer by the time I'm done with my notes. Then we want to select the best format for notes. So guys, honestly, if I was doing, let's say, a compare and contrast, I might use 2-column notes. I would put one character in one column, one character in another column, and then I'd write all the different things about each, and I'd see, well, how are they the same? How are they different? So what format is going to work best for the notes that I'm taking? Then we want to actually practice using different formats. Now, am I, as your AVID teacher, going to make you use different formats? No, but you are going to learn as you get older, as you grow, as you go to college, that sometimes the way you take notes for math may not be the same way you take notes for English. So you're going to have to find these different formats that work depending on, again, your purpose or maybe even the content. Then you're going to actually write your notes based on the source. The source could be your teacher because they're lecturing. Your source could be a video that you're watching. Your source could be an actual book or novel that you're reading. You want to select the information you're going to write. You want to paraphrase it and arrange it in a way that makes sense to you. That's why I could have two of you taking notes on the same novel, and you could have notes look totally different because of what makes sense to each of you. So that's the great thing about notes, guys, and the great thing about the AVID process. We want you to write, arrange, put things together that make sense to you. Now, in taking notes, guys, you do want to look at different formats. So, of course, there's the old Cornell note format. If you are been around AVID, you know that we used to have the essential question. In this area, you would take notes. Over here, question, you would summarize. If you remember our video from last week, the two gentlemen talked about formats of notes. Then there's the 2 and 3 columns. So notice here, term, definition, example. So this is a 3 column where I write the word, the definition of the word, example. Sometimes could be good for science terminology. The mind map, remember when you start in the center and you branch out, then we have different graphic organizers. Like this is our double bubble map where everything that's different is on the outside, everything that's the same is in the middle. And then even interactive notebooks where you have your output and input. Input is what the notes you get from your teacher. Output is something you produce. Again, let me be clear. Are you required to use each of these formats in Avid? No, you are supposed to find a format that works for you as a student. And that's what I want you to go ahead and use. Now, the next part is now, guys, so most of you are going to do great with part 1. You will take notes, you will write notes, but then it turns into, well, what next? Oh, I don't have a test till Friday, so I don't have to look at my notes. Well, that's not necessarily true. We actually have to process, think about what we just wrote down and make it make sense to us. So we have to think about, well, what we wrote down. Why did we write it down? What was important? What stands out? What should I memorize? What formulas should I know? I want to do this within 24 hours of taking notes. So I definitely want you to write this part down, guys. If I take notes today in class, I should be going home tonight for homework and reviewing those notes if I want them to stick to memory. Should be done within 24 hours of taking notes. It's also a great time for you to collaborate. Get with your partner, get with your Avid classmate, get with your best friend. Hey, so let's talk about what was going on in the war. What did you write down? Who did you say was important? Why did you say there was important? And you guys can compare notes. Then you get to share things that they may have missed. They'll share things that you missed. You'll talk about and determine what was important and what was not important. And then you'll be able to pick up and go, oh, that makes sense. I didn't think of it that way. So definitely an opportunity to collaborate. Now, for some of you, the processing note part can get messy because you are going to be asked to revise. And that is going to bother some of you. Some of you are very perfectionists when it comes to your notes, and they need to look a certain way. They need to be a certain color, a certain neatness. And guys, I'm going to tell you, once you figure out the revision process, again, do what works for you. I don't want you to take notes and review your notes and collaborate and then revise, and then you can't use the notes because they're too messy for you. You've got to find what works for you. Okay. And finally, focus on clarifying the content and organizing. So if we're talking about a war, then we want to know, well, what was the cause of the war? Who were the main people in the war? What were the actions? And then how did it end? So how can I organize? How can I clarify points within my notes that will help me understand everything that I just wrote down? All right, guys, that's the time that I have for this first video. I'll be back in a few minutes with another video. So, all right.